Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Victory Garden webinar, Victory Garden Project webinar, if I'm going to use the full name that I made up. And I'm excited to share a lot of the course with you today. So what I ended up actually designing is a self-paced e-learning course. And so we won't go through all of it today. But I'm going to give you an overview of the design and the different features of the course. And then at some point, probably near the end, I will pop the link to the actual course that you can go to directly in the chat. And we'll probably put it up on the page as well for people to explore. Um, like many things that I've created throughout my career, this is a work in progress. So you will maybe see a couple typos. There are some bits and pieces of the course that I already know, like this is my next to do to improve it and make the interactives better, the flow better, the uh, engagement level better. Um, but as it is, I think it's a really fun experience to go through, whether you are new to gardening or an experienced gardener. There's a lot of different options for the kinds of things that you can learn. So let me get into sharing my screen real quick. And everybody should be able to see the lady, uh, the first lady of many ladies in the Victory Garden project. When you get to the landing page, as you can see here, you've got your navigability along the top, and these are the different sections of the course. So you can use those menus at any time to click to get to different parts of it. And so there's a lot of different options for being able to click around and kind of navigate to different parts that you may be interested in. There's a few different kind of options to reveal the content within the course. Or you can press, if you can see it, the little pulsing thing, well, it pulsed for a second at the bottom to get started. So the first section of the course is just an introduction to the different features and goes into a little narrative about how I came to create the course, which has to do, of course, with North Raleigh Seed Library community. Someone posted, I don't know if they're here, but someone posted a request for Victory Gardens. Throw it in the chat if that was you. And I jumped at it, the chance to build out a course for it. A little bit about me. I spent 16 years in the classroom, the middle school classroom to be exact. And I was teaching history for all of that time, along with a variety of other courses. Um, and so I started to get into, side note, gardening a couple years ago. I had some indoor plants. They didn't do great. And then there was when I got to a new school in the last couple of years, there was an abandoned pothos in like corner of a classroom that I rescued. And that was like my starter plant, my gateway plant to actually being decent at raising plants indoor and outdoor. Then all of that led me to really develop the hobby that I now have. And I would say like I'm a backyard gardener, container gardener, raised bed kind of gardener. But I've only really been doing it for 3 or 4 years. So I know a lot of you guys have a lot more experience than I do. But I've absolutely loved being a part of North Raleigh Seed Library. And it's been a really inspiring community. And so I wanted to kind of give back to the community because it's given so much to me. And in addition to gardening how-to within this course, there is other content as well. And so I will show you what some of that looks like. When you are following the like linear line of the course. Mainly, you're just kind of going through it and scrolling down and hitting continue, and then it will reveal below, and you just scroll down within the different sections. And right now, the course is best viewed if you're viewing it off this call, it's best viewed on a computer. It can be optimized for tablet and phone, but it has not been yet. That's on my to-do list, to make that look better. But you can still see things on a tablet or an iPhone or a phone. It just, like the text is weird. So, but things still most of the time work. Getting into the different sections of the course, the content of the course, you might notice that the different bolded sections here are the same ones that are up here along the top. So again, you can use this to navigate, or you can come over here. Each of these is linked to the different sections that has the content, and each of those explains what the purpose of that section of the course is. And we'll go through each of them so you can kind of see the content and what you'll learn. So in addition to gardening content within the course, there is an opportunity for some reflective journaling, and I call it victory journaling because everything has to have the same name, so victory everything, for this course. And so that is an option to do, to be a part of, as you take the course, whichever like way that you use it, whether you're doing it throughout like a growing season or you are kind of taking bits and pieces of it and different advice. I have found a lot of peace and a lot of growth in journaling. Specifically, only really about gardening, though, to be honest with you. I'm not a journaler. I wouldn't say like I do a whole lot of handwriting, but it has helped me learn a whole lot, first of all, and be able to also go back and reflect on what did and did not work. Why my kohlrabi did not grow one year and it did grow the other. So I have my journal right here. You can kind of see it. So this is my Victory Garden journal that technically existed before I made the course, but I did want to share that there. So, of course, you don't have to journal. You can skip right over those kinds of things, but there are different options throughout the sections. There are 5, I think, different sets of prompts that you can go through. And then also within the course, there is history, of course, because it's a former history teacher teaching the course right now, so there's going to be a lot of that. And victory gardens come from historical time periods. So historical context is embedded throughout the course. The first section, the Recognize the Roots section, has the actual history of victory gardens, and we'll get to that in a second. And then in addition to that, I've included profiles of different women within about the last century in the United States who had various other roles, but were impactful in some way, shape, or form to gardening, to growing one's own food, to food security and/or sustainability, or some version of those things. So you can see the list of those women. Rosie the Riveter, of course, is not real, but the rest of them are and were real. Some are past, some are still alive. So I will go ahead and continue on to, oh, no, I won't. I will show you the pacing guide. So again, this is made right now in its current form to be a self-guided course. So it's just on a website is all you're looking at right now. And like I was saying a second ago, there's a few different suggested options. You can use the course throughout the growing season, which we, of course, are getting into right now, and use your journal and kind of, go along with the different exercises and ways that it teaches the different processes of growing a victory garden. You could also take just a chunk of time to go through all of the content and take notes, or use whatever form of learning that is works best for you. My editors that I had look over the course said when they were just like reading through it, it was about an hour, hour and a half. So that's why it says 1 to 2 hours, but of course, everybody is consuming content at their own pace. Um, but you could look through it that way as well. Or you can just kind of like look at it when you want to. So there's a lot of different options for how you can navigate through it. All right, so that is going to go into the first section. So we are now in Visualize Your Victory. This section doesn't have direct gardening content yet. That's the heaviest chunks of gardening direct like content is map method, scale success, and maintain mindfulness. Visualize Your Victory has a lot more to do with the um, setting goals for yourself, which is, again, the purpose of kind of the reflective journaling. And it also starts with our first victory woman, Rosie the Riveter. So Rosie the Riveter was never actually used to promote victory gardens directly. And in fact, she's become a really iconic figure starting in like the late 80s. It wasn't actually a super widespread use of Rosie the Riveter during World War II itself. However, her spirit is kind of what I'm pulling into the Victory Women's idea of having hope and a can-do attitude. And so while she would not have, or the character would not have directly promoted Victory Gardens, at that time, she's still, I think, become a really iconic figure for um, let's say can-do attitudes. We'll put it that way. Plus we like I've always loved that muscle thing. Um, but we had to kind of have her as I had to throw her in here as like a start person. And you may have also noticed this iconic headband is actually a part of each of the header images for each section. A couple of them have an actual red polka dot headband, and the rest of them have random other colors. But we all got to keep our hair back in the garden, so it works. um, and then this part takes you directly into the first victory journaling exercise. So if you were to use this part of the course, this is where you're going to start creating your goals. Now, the options for one's goals within this course can be about gardening itself, or it can be about other things. I think when we spend time in nature, when we spend time with plants, when we spend time with animals, when we spend time outside of, our screens and our work to-dos and day to day, it helps us be a lot more reflective, right? And so that's a big point of like why I included all of the journaling exercises within this course. So going through each of those, this is where you're like brainstorming what your goals can be. Again, whether it's personal or professional or gardening related or other, whatever. You can use the gardens that you're growing to be a way to try to spur you on for growth as well. And so this exercise takes you through that. And then the idea is that you work on that goal throughout the course. And when we hit continue, we get our first actual real Victory Garden woman, who was Louise Klein Miller. And so she was the first woman to be in charge of a city parks system, or city gardening system, no, city park system, the full thing, in Ohio, in Cleveland. And so she was early 1900s woman, and she, in addition to building out and designing the main city park system within Cleveland, she also developed gardens for schools. And as a former teacher, that is a big, big thing for me. You'll notice that there are a number of women who have or have had or had influence on gardening with children, and gardens for children. And those are in there in particular because I think it's incredibly important to teach young kids the importance of learning some of these skills. And I say that having not successfully drug my own daughter out to the garden very often, but again, it's about goals sometimes. So maybe I could learn a few things from Louise's books because she did actually publish a number of books about gardening with children and guides for school and home. So she would have been, I think, pre-Victory Garden push in World War One, but again, still gardening adjacent. She developed a lot of community gardens as well. Okay, so getting into the history side of, or the history focus section, we're looking at the roots of Victory Gardens. So there's kind of four-ish time periods that I selected to cover when you're trying to understand where this concept came from. And so that's what this next section is for. This first part that I'm about to click through is a timeline, like overview. And then as you scroll down throughout this section, you get more content about each time period in particular. So World War One and World War II, these would be when the concept of Victory Gardens came from. So they were actually during both wars promoted commissions from the federal government in order to try to get people to grow food at home. And then in World War II, a little bit more in community gardens. And then you'll notice a giant gap of time between the end of World War II and 2020. And people certainly probably had victory gardens. There was just not a lot of popular focus on it. And then when the pandemic hit, obviously this caused a lot of disruptions to food supply, global food chains and things like that. And so people started to consider maybe we should start growing some of our things at home. And then if we're looking now, there's a lot more focus on community gardening as well as sustainability within different groups of people who are trying to build up something like a victory garden or within that concept. So that's the overview. I will not go into the weeds too much on the history section because we'll be there forever. But each section just again has more content about and more background information about what victory gardening was like during that time period. So you can see a few examples of how the federal government promoted victory gardens. There was the National War Garden Commission, U.S. Food Administration promoted it, and then you actually had promotions of something called the School Garden Army, which you can see an actual poster of on the right side there, where kids were encouraged to join after school programs slash kind of during the school day programs as part of their science curriculum to garden at school. And then, of course, we're able to eat what they produced. Between World War One and World War II, I have our next Victory Garden woman who was Anne Spencer. And she was mainly a poet and also an activist. She was part of the Harlem Renaissance. She lived in Virginia, but she was the first Black woman to have poetry published in a major publication or a major anthology, the Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry. And so she had a large garden within her home that a number of different people who were also involved in activism or other figures of the Harlem Renaissance would actually go and visit there and rest there. And so she had those kinds of impacts as well. What I love about the women that I ended up choosing for these different sections is how each of them has their own main purpose for the most part. And then gardening or food production or sustainability becomes like a part of that, right? And we know that, we're a lot more than just the one thing that we do. So I think it's really cool if you look through these different women to see not only their impacts on society and how different those impacts were, but you can kind of see the strands of how gardening played into their work. So Let's go to World War II. And so World War II, the whole national promotion of Victory Gardens was revitalized. This time there was more focus on preservation and canning, actually. And community gardening was also something that was promoted more so than it was in World War One. This is also the time where we saw popular characters be a part of the government's promotion of Victory Gardens. So example, Mickey Mouse with his green thumb and the three V's, vegetable, vitamins, and vitality, from the National Victory Garden Institute. There's also records of Superman promoting this, as well as Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the first lady during the majority of World War II, was a part of that promotion too. Our next victory woman is was Marie Clark Taylor. And so one of her big things, first of all, she was the first Black woman, or one of the first, to earn a doctorate in botany. So she studied that. And she was also somebody that promoted direct observation within education and science curricula, and insisted that classrooms should be filled with plants, which as a former teacher, I did have a classroom filled with plants. So I liked that a lot about her. Um, and she actually even advised President LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, to with certain scientific methods um, related to her research. Let's see, I think this was, yeah, later than World War II. So that is her. And then we again, big time jump. The reason there's a big time jump is more or less, again, there were people I'm sure that did focus on victory gardening, but there wasn't any kind of government commission that I found. And you also, of course, between the end of World War II and nowish, had the rise of large factory agriculture, or the continued rise of that, as well as the convenience of grocery stores and restaurants, fast food in particular, right? So, of course, people who had left the Great Depression and the Second World War, they wanted to embrace that convenience, right? So, of course, people are going to stop trying to have to grow their own food and be only self-sustaining, right? Most people probably in human history, given that choice, would choose the convenience. But that's what's happened. And so, when people are born later on, like me in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of people teaching kids or anyone how to grow their own food. And it wasn't until really in 2020, when we all took our global pause and reflected on things, that you started to see a bit of a reemergence in the Victory Garden, like movements and things like that, as people kind of reconsidered where their food came from, or were forced to. And then if we're looking at victory gardening now, people tend to look into it as an option for a variety of reasons. So climate change, of course, is a major issue. And if you know anything about big agriculture and farming practices, they're major contributors to climate change through greenhouse gas emissions. And so some people will choose victory gardening so that you can focus on a more local and community food system. Similar ideas, similar issues with food security that we've already kind of talked about as a result of the pandemic, at least in the United States. And then, of course, the reasons that we're all gardening already. We know that it's one of the healthiest hobbies that you can have. We know how good we feel and how productive we feel. I'm speaking for you guys, but I'm assuming this is correct. When we have success in the garden, and when we can enjoy what we've grown, whether it's food or flowers or whatever. And then, of course, building community, which is what we're all doing right now, being on this webinar together. And so promoting things like community gardens can be a big part of it as well. And we're going to keep continuing. And then we get into the next victory journaling exercise. I'm not going to pause and read any of that. But of course, you can read that on your own with the link later. And one of the things that is not the best right now is the transitions between the different sections. Um, but that will be fixed later on. All right, so I was saying a minute ago that the big chunk of actual garden instruction and content is in the map method section, the scale success, and the maintain mindfulness. So this section of the course basically is it's called a long scroll. And there's a lot of different interactives for exploration to help you figure out what will work best for your victory garden if that's something that you're looking to design. So the first section of that are different methods that are improved techniques from the original victory gardens, which did not, because I mean, granted, it was the early 1900s, and also the fact that these were things that were um, done during wartime, environment was not considered, right? Effect on the environment was not considered. And now that we know better, we can choose a number of pollinator friendly practices as much as possible. At least that's what I try to do. I know it doesn't always happen, but I try really hard in my own backyard and front yard and garden. So using methods like polyculture, low till or no till, using native or climate appropriate plants when possible, as well as water conservation. Each of these are just little cards that have a definition and example of things that you can do to try to use those methods in your garden. And so a number of you may already have rain barrels or know what low till or no till are, but if not, you can learn it in that section. Um, and then we start to get into the different interactives lower. Unfortunately, this is going to probably be one that just goes away because it doesn't work most of the time. This has to do with the coding of what I was using, of the software I was using. So this will probably be the only time you see this, but it's a little bit of an interactive. I mean, these dots are supposed to be in completely different places. But when you, yeah, this dot that I just popped up is supposed to be over here on the rain barrel. So this will probably go away, but again, little interactives to help you imagine your space. The other reason I'll probably get rid of this is because this section down here actually has some redundant information. So this will be improved at some point. If it works on your end, great. If not, most of this information is available on these cards here. So these are just different considerations about what to think about and plan for when you're planning your garden. So some facts about your sunlight, your water and your water sources, your climate, some information about like a hardiness zone, for example, the different kinds of gear to consider as a list if you're trying to plan things out. And then we get into Ruth Stout. So if you saw the advertisement the other day on the NRSL page about the woman who gardened naked, here she is. This is her, Ruth Stout. And yes, it's well documented that she definitely gardened naked. Not with like pictures, but it's a different time. But she is also somebody who developed the no-till method. And it actually came out of just one of the best things that you can do, just trying things and seeing what happens. So I like Ruth Stout because she's a bold lady. She's also an experimenter. And so her idea was, let me just go throw a bunch of hay or straw, organic material, hay, yeah, not straw, out and see if this works better for improving soil health. And it did. And she ended up creating an actual method. And I know that, you know, sometimes when we're looking through our projects or our gardens or whatever, we try to figure out ways to make things a little bit easier, right? People call them life hacks sometimes. So she found the life hack. All right, so then we start getting into different tools that people can use in order to figure out what to actually grow in your victory gardens. So this next one is just a little checklist. It's kind of like the who, what, when, where, why, and how of what you would need to consider if you are trying to start your victory garden. And then the different section below that is helping you choose your plants. And so when I was doing research, there were a number of different like methods for creating your list of what you wanted to grow. And I based this one on one of them I found, I think, in the Container Victory Gardening book. Um, but it says brainstorming, make a list of things you're interested in growing, and then with that list, choose one of the edible plants and then scroll through these next questions to see if they will be a good addition to the garden. And so this little section here, when you click through these little dots, we'll just go through those questions. So the first is, if you're growing a victory garden and you're trying to grow food that you'll eat, the question is, will your household actually eat it? If the answer is no, maybe don't grow it unless you want to challenge yourself or you want to give it to somebody else. Like that's wonderful too. But if your household's not going to eat it, okay. Um, and the next question is, can you grow it in the space you have? Now, obviously, as we know as gardeners, you have a lot of different options for how to use your space. Some people are growing in soil, some people are growing in raised beds, in containers, in balconies, tiny spaces. Those count as victory gardens. But if you can't grow it in your space, or it's going to be hard to fit in, then maybe consider something else. This is a question that I wish I would have known when I first kind of started out trying to grow food in my backyard, is whether or not the plant would produce a good amount of yield. Um, Kohlrabi does not. You get one. Broccoli does not. You get one. Lettuces, you get a bunch. And as much as we enjoyed the one kohlrabi we had 2 years ago at Thanksgiving and then the next one at Christmas, we only got to enjoy it once. So I don't know how much brassicas I'll be doing from now on, but lettuces I'll probably keep going on. So considering yield is really helpful within this process. Considering maintenance, how much time, effort, resources you're going to need in order to get that fruit to come, if you need to give things different amendments and stuff like that. That doesn't necessarily mean you should take something off your list because, of course, some of the hardest things to grow are the most rewarding. But it's something to consider. And then season, of course, right? And in my different gardening groups that I'm a part of, I always see different questions about, is this the right season? Is this the right season? So for you veteran people who know gardening and the seasons and all of the things, um, that's kind of a no-brainer, but a lot of people who are just starting out really don't know. And you also have to consider time and, germination and harvest dates as well. Um, and of course, we do have a lot of great resources in our area to help us figure those things out. And if you make it all the way through this tool and you still have the same plant, it's probably a good addition to your victory garden. So, hooray. There are some brassicas in there. I've also unsuccessfully grown carrots. They were the saddest little things, but something grew, so that's okay. All right, so then the next part of figuring out what you're going to put in your victory garden is seeds or transplants. So this is just a list of pros and cons of both of those. And I know some of us are starting seeds right now. I've got some little baby sprouts in the other room that even if they don't grow in anything, I'm just very happy that they're there. I've had some success with seeds in my gardens, and I've had more success with transplants, but they're more expensive. So there's pros and cons, of course, to both. All right, and then we get into Fannie Lou Hamer. So she was a civil rights activist, and one of the projects that she started and led until her death in, let's see, I think it was 1976, was the Freedom Farm Cooperative. She was from Mississippi, so would have had to face a whole lot of adversity. She would have been born during the Jim Crow era. But in the late 60s was able to purchase land and provided land for Black farmers in order to be able to grow their own food and raise livestock and provide for themselves. So she was very much in this part of it, teach a man to fish kind of mentality, and how she was improving her community. And then we get into the third victory journaling exercise, which again, I will not read through, so you're not bored. All right, and then we get into some other things to consider when you're scaling for success, you're scaling your garden. And some of these were mentioned in part a little bit, but these go into a bit more detail. So considering things like costs, your mobility, and what you're able to do and get to in the garden, your time commitment, as well as your soil. And I probably should have just started the entire thing with soil. But it's thrown in here. This should obviously be first, but maybe we'll move that around later on. Um, okay, and then I'm gonna keep going. Come on now. There we go. And then we get to the next Victory Garden women. We've got Grace Lee Boggs. So we left Mississippi and went to inner city Detroit to visit this lady. Grace Lee Boggs, she founded a inner city, I don't know if inner city is the right word, but she founded Detroit Summer. And so was getting working with I think mostly children, mostly teenage, not well, teenagers in Detroit, trying to teach them to grow food within the city, which is really, really cool, and had a number of other projects. We know that gardening can lead to longevity, and Grace lived to 100, so she's passed, but she lived quite a long life as well. And there's one more Victory woman who is still alive and is 94, but she'll come later. Um, the scale success section of the course is the part that when I get back into the next round of edits that I'm probably going to redesign some because it's a little clunky from a instructional design perspective. I don't know if you'll notice these things, but it's if you're noticing the flow is a little icky, it's a work in progress, like I said. But either way, getting into different spacing needs and when you're thinking about how to put plants together in a space. So these are just little flip cards explaining plant spacing, um, concept of companion planting, as well as succession planting. And then we go into the next Victory Garden woman who she is still alive, I believe. Ooh, I need to double check that history fact. But this is Wilma Mankiller. If that is not a literal name, that's a name within the Cherokee Indigenous group. That is just within that culture is a positive thing, just as a heads up. Not anything negative about man killing. But it needs to be said. So she was actually the first woman to be elected principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. And like many indigenous communities, she has a lot of during that time, placed a lot of focus on revitalizing different indigenous agricultural practices, specifically, of course, Cherokee ones. And I picked her because of that, as well as the fact that as a native North Carolina, well, not native, but as somebody who is born and grew up in North Carolina, the Cherokee was the group that I learned the most about growing up. And we do still, of course, have a Cherokee community, mostly out in Western North Carolina, within our state. So I thought it was really cool to include her in there. I do think she's still alive, but I can't remember. Um, and then victory journaling exercise number 4. Each of the journaling exercises in each of these places is designed to have a more direct connection to the theme of that section. So scaling and considering what you can do with the resources you have, for example, is a part of this. All right, we're doing on time. Okay. All right, then we get to Dolores Huerta. She is still alive. She also is the mother of 11 children and was a major labor leader, is a major labor leader. So she co-founded with Cesar Chavez the United Farm Workers, and that's still an organization that exists and advocates for better wages and safer practices within modern agriculture. Um, and so has spent a lot of her life working on activism within ethical and sustainable food production. Um, Very busy woman, 11 kids and an activist. So pretty impressive there. I love her colors as well. Okay. I don't know if you could tell. I do like color here. All right. So, and then we get into the maintain with mindfulness section. And so this first section is just about the different things to consider when making like a maintenance plan for your garden. So your watering plan, your feeding plan. This is the thing that I need to do more of within my garden. I have like a tumbler for compost, but it doesn't produce as much as I need to be able to feed things. So this is something I'll probably focus on more this spring, is making sure that my plants have what they need to actually produce. I think that's where some of my error has been in the past. Pests, everybody's favorite thing to get rid of. Different diseases, being aware of what kinds of diseases your plants may face is really helpful to know ahead of time so you know what to look for if need be. It's also important to know what kind of pruning will help your plant do its best performance within your garden. And then, yay, everybody's favorite thing, the harvesting. Oh, see, there's an ugly thing that's not working very well. But different tips for harvesting and enjoying your abundance from your garden. All right, so Martha Stewart may throw you guys off here, but may not. I don't know. Fun fact about Martha Stewart, she was a Wall Street stockbroker in the 70s. I don't know if anybody caught her. She has a Netflix special that came out, I think, last fall. But of course, has a lot to say about gardening and made a major impact on people turning to gardening as well as considering their food sources. She's a big proponent of farm to table cooking and sustainability practices as well. Um, and then next, victory journaling. And this is actually the last one, ending with some gratitude practices, which is always really good to do. And then Alice Waters is the last Victory Garden woman. And so she is a chef, very famous chef. Michelin, multiple Michelin stars, I think, probably. But one of the reasons that we actually know so much about the Victory Garden movement now is because of her research that she did to create the Edible Schoolyard Project, which she did in the mid 90s. But she compiled her research on Victory Gardens. Mainly focusing, of course, on World War I and World War II, in order to help develop this school. It's like school curricula for having school gardens. And it's been around, the Edible Schoolyard Project's been around for a long time. Um, so kind of similar to Martha Stewart is a big focus on farm to table, and lots like some other people that we've had before, lots of focus on community-based agriculture or community-based food production. And then we get into the course evaluation. So this will take, once somebody has finished the course, that'll take you to a Google form to fill out to evaluate and give feedback and suggestions for improvement. I always love continuous improvement, and I really do value people's input and crowdsourcing different ideas, especially when it comes to creativity and things that I don't know as well as some of you guys do, which is probably a lot about gardening. And then the references sections, these are all of the books, websites, and videos that I used for my research. And each of these connects to a link. All of these are different links. So if I open it up, it'll take you to the book link. And actually I have this book from the library still sitting over here. So each of these are different things that takes you to learn more. We just read about Alice Waters and the Edible Schoolyard. And there's her website there. So all of those are different options for you to learn more as well. So that's going to take us to the end of the course, at least for now. And let me go into, I'd love to open it up for some questions, and I'm going to start with the ones in the chat. So Pam, thank you, Pam. Good job. Thank you for the inspiration. Is Pam still on? Yes, Pam's phone. Yay. Yes, thank you so much, Pam, for the idea and the inspiration. This has honestly been a really wonderful project for me. A little bit more about me. So I left the middle school classroom at the end of last year, and I've been took a few months off on purpose to kind of reset. And then I'm looking for a job right now, and I'm in transition trying to actually get an instructional designer position. So Pam, personally, I'd like to thank you because you gave me a project to work on for my different like adult learning skills and instructional design skills. I chose like a new software to learn because of this. So and I got to do research on history, which it always makes me happy, and I get to teach. So uh,
Oh,
it's been really wonderful. So there you are. Hi, Pam. Thank
hi, Mary. Thank you so
you.
much. You've made it really, really fun. So, no thanks to me. I just had the idea. You've done great with it.
I thank you. Ideas are really important, all kinds of things. You said when did community canning stations become a thing? I don't know. Um, the only thing I know is that when the government was promoting or re-promoting the Victory Garden commissions in World War II, my research said that canning and preservation became a lot more of a focus. So my best guess is World War II, but that would be another cool history um, path to go down. Um, Saw a documentary about, I don't know who that Dorotis is. Wait, documentaries are great. Um, Very professionally done. Yes, thank you. Okay, wonderful. Does anybody want to unmute, ask any questions about content in the course design? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not in a hurry or anything, but I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste the website in the chat so you can go ahead and open that up if you want. I'll post it at some point, or one of us will, on the main page. For you guys to explore. If you're using it and it ever like goes down, it's just me editing stuff, but the actual web URL should not change because I use the same one every time um when I push it to the internet. So, there any other questions or things you're just kind of wondering about? I'm gonna Google the canning question. Hmm. It says World War One and Two, so would have been part of it. And looks like it's also
Okay.
that school, actually some of them were based in schools as well, um, within the different facilities. I mean, that makes sense. Schools do have big spaces. That's one of the reasons they're used for like election day things as well. Um, Make a section on preserving. Ooh, that's a great idea, Dawn. Okay, so in instructional design, when you don't know what you're not an expert on your content yet, you have to talk to a subject matter expert. So I would need many subject matter experts because I don't know anything about that and I don't want to poison anybody. Although I do have some red onions, pickled red onions, but you can't mess those up. But Dawn, I love that idea. Having more ideas about food preservation would be great and definitely on theme. All right. Fantastic. Canning expert referral. Thanks. Cool. Yeah, I'll take what I can get, send it my way. You can feel free to DM me on Facebook with everything. Canning station in North Raleigh. Maybe we should start one. I don't have enough yield.
Yeah, no.
My I wouldn't have anything to can. It looks like, as always, NC State Extension, all of their ag stuff does have some resources, but I don't know if there's an actual, doesn't look like there is one. Pickyourown.org, where to find local cannery or canning center. That's pretty cool. I love it. Mike will be thrilled. So funny. Cecilia, I hope you can tell us about, you can share some stuff with us if we're going to add that section. That sounds like a great idea. Thank you. All right. Well, if you guys are all good, I'm going to wrap up. What's to say I'm Catherine Reynolds? KG, I'm from Winston. Catherine Reynolds was a really interesting person. Um, Yeah, Renata Gardens. I grew up on Wake Forest campus, Wake Forest University's campus, and my parents are actually finally now selling their house and moving off campus. Dad's been at Wake Forest in some way, shape, or form since 1968. But I love Renata Gardens, and that doesn't surprise me at all that that was a part of um, that time period. Hmm. Renata Gardens is great. Winston is perfect for a road trip. It's wonderful. Go Deeks. Pam, I knew I liked you. Fabulous.
Hey, trying to go for teacher's pet.
It's not hard. Most of my middle school
Kidding,
students
kidding,
figured it out
everybody.
pretty quick. We definitely have favorites. I can admit it. I don't do it anymore, so it's fine. But we definitely have favorites. Pam, you win. Good job. All right. Well, if anybody has anything else they want to share, go for it. Otherwise we can kind of wrap up. Again, would love to hear feedback. If you want to spend some time with the course, if you want to send me any ideas that just like popped into your head, feel free to DM me on Facebook, or you can post it. I don't care. Or you can, if you wanted to like spend some time on the course itself and then fill out some things on the linked course evaluation, that's great too. So, all right. If we're all good, I think I'll end us out. Thank you guys so much. Hope y'all learned something and enjoyed. Yay. Thank you.
Mary, what a fantastic job. Thank you so much for your time you've put in to research and put the course together. This was fantastic.
Thank you. It was a lot. It really was a joy, a lot of fun to do. Um, and
Thank
you,
you, Mary. Thank you, Adriana.
yeah, thank you guys. Adrian, I hope you feel better. All right. Well, I'm going to end this out, and the recording will be posted at some point once it renders and can get uploaded, and I can get the links um sent saved and sent out. So we'll figure out how to do that. All right. Thank you guys. Enjoy
Hey,
the beautiful spring weather this week.
all right. Bye.
Bye, guys.